Rosie Schonell is the author of her debut novel, middle grade mystery, Breaking School Rules is Easy, the hardest part is not getting caught. She has a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Special Education and has taught English at all levels in schools and specialised in teaching students with learning difficulties. Rosie also volunteers at schools and organisations that teach reading, including teaching newly arrived adult migrants. She loves the game of pickleball, outrigging on Pittwater, and volunteers as a crisis supporter at LIFELINE. Rosie lives with her husband and has 3 adult children she's raised who loves books as much as she does. She spends her time between Balmain and the northern beaches of Sydney. Welcome to the Hybrid Author Podcast, Rosie.
Thank you.
We're thrilled to have you here. We'll just start with how you came to be a writer.
Okay, well, I've always loved books. I've always loved reading. I've always loved storytelling. I studied literature at university and then went on to be an English teacher. So I taught it in high school right through to the HSC. And then I got into special education, which are students that have learning difficulties. A lot of them were reluctant readers. So, I got into different ways we went from phonetic learning the words, and then we got into storytelling. So audio stories through pictures, so graphic novels, just ways to get them to think about storytelling, and then slowly instilling a love of books. And I guess I always loved storytelling. And then my children, who I did lots and lots of reading with, they grew up and I found some time and I just thought I've always wanted to write my own story. So it was now or never.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's amazing. And did your adult children, did they love reading as much as you do? Because you read to them? Because I'm finding with my kids,
Yeah, absolutely.
not so much. Even though I've read to my kids all their life, they kind of turned against it. I hope they pick it up.
Yeah, no, they're all readers. So I said to them, that's my legacy. I'm going to make sure you're all books.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your debut middle grade, Breaking School Rules is Easy. And yeah, I love the title, the hardest part is not getting caught. It says a lot.
Well, it's a mystery for middle graders. It's set in a fictional town in Australia, and the protagonists become schoolgirl detectives, and they're on a quest, and they face lots of danger and take lots of risks on their quest. It's high stakes because there's a motivational reason why they're on this quest, and the story starts off with something that happened over 100 years ago, and then it jumps to the modern day, set in a school and around the fictional town. And it's about the girls on a quest, solving lots of clues.
Yeah, fantastic. It's funny because you say a fictional town, but Mirrabooka, we actually have a suburb close by called Mirrabooka.
It's
not a town, but
I came up with the name, and I thought it sounded really really Australian. And I came up with the name, and I was like really excited, and I really loved it. And I ran it past a few people, and they're going, "Oh, that's a great name! I love it! I love it!" I thought, "Wow!" And then someone said to me after I sort of halfway through writing the book, they said there was actually a town called that, and I was like, no. So I thought, you know what? I had the name in my head and I loved it and I kept it.
Yeah, it's probably nothing like, in the suburb here in Western Australia at all. It's, no.
I hope not, but
No,
I just love the name.
Yeah. And I love the names of the girls, Minty, and we've just sort of discovered her real name. Is she, how do you say it? Araminta?
Araminta.
Yeah, okay.
Araminta, and so so she's shortened to Minty and then Billy.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And mystery is it's a really hot topic, I think. It's quite popular, isn't it, for middle grade titles? Although there's not a lot out there, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I think there is a little bit of there are the well-known ones, but there's a little bit of a gap there, especially ones set in Australia. Yeah, I just wanted to be set in Australia and have all that sense of mystery around it with the setting and everything as well.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So in Breaking Rules is Easy, your protagonist takes some rebellious steps that drive the plot. Can you, their characters are coming across quite strong-willed, quite mischievous. Can you talk about how did you develop these characters and what do you hope young readers will take away from their personalities?
Well, I wanted them to be a little bit different, but also complement each other. And I wanted different readers to be able to identify with their different traits. So I didn't want to make them exactly the same because all children can be different. So, so there's one that is clever at school, but has a bit of an anxiety. And the other character, Billy, is more adventurous, more outgoing, doesn't like schoolwork, but has lots of courage and is more outdoorsy. So, yeah, so they both change as the story progresses and both sort of helping each other along on the quest. Look, with their different personalities, what I want the readers to really take away is that if you face your fears, it empowers you, and then you become able to face more exciting and more challenging things in your life. And then the other message is that academic grades, while they're very important, they're not the sum of who you are as a person. And I think it's really important for children with all the pressure that's on them today to realize that everybody has their own gifts and their own traits that should be celebrated. And it's just not all about that mark, even though obviously children have to work hard, but just to know that they can be good at lots of different things.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I guess, is I wanted them to also look at their, understand a moral compass, like what is right, like what is right, the right thing to do. Yeah. So those things from the characters.
Amazing. They're really powerful messages, and especially for myself, mother of two girls, 13 and 10. And yes, I just feel like those themes really fit in with those age groups, especially, anxiety in this day and age. It's so rife. It's not just girls, but obviously with boys as well. And I think it's really clever how you've got two characters that, they're different. They're almost like a yin and a yang, but their different traits work well together. If you've got a
Mm.
sort of anxiety character and then one that's adventurous, that's going to be pulling her along, I suppose, and then the other one's maybe pulling the other one back a bit is it works quite well. I think that's really clever. So
Oh, thank you.
that's all right.
So, yeah, then the messages about it also has messages in it about, it's good to help other people and, just, other sort of friendship, like what makes a good friend and all that stuff. But yeah, in regards to the characters, I think they bring out those things that I just discussed.
Yeah. So were those messages quite important to you at the beginning of the novel, or did they just sort of you realized as you were telling the story, this is what?
No, they were
Yeah.
important
Yeah.
because I think there's lots of children that are anxious and they're tentative at school and they don't want to make mistakes and they don't, so they hold back. And so it's a really important message for them to get that if you try and you face your fears, you'll be able to do harder things and do better things.
Yeah.
And then I really believe that children are under a lot of pressure today and that, school marks, school marks, school marks is probably it's trying to get into, the OC class and they're trying to get into selective class or it's trying to get the HSC marks, all those things are continually through, you know, and you see kids really getting very stressed, whereas, it's really important to celebrate things like being kind and, things that so many children have these wonderful traits that aren't necessarily, they don't get the award at school. Do you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think that they're really important to understand that there are lots of traits that you have that are going to ensure that you do really well in life and have a happy life.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And probably as a teacher, you've seen a lot of these stresses and things firsthand.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah,
that's shaped it all.
absolutely. And I see, I've seen students that try and try and try, and they're really trying so hard, but, obviously they don't always get recognized, but they've got these amazing traits.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I think just the word stress and childhood, I just feel like it shouldn't be there, They
Yeah.
should be kids and as long as possible. And that's what I like about your novel as well, the imaginative element and the quest. And that's the childhood sort of play and the things too, which is great. Well, mystery books for kids, that often incorporate thrilling and suspenseful elements. How did you balance, creating mystery, like compelling mystery with ensuring it's like age appropriate for younger readers as well?
Well, it's, once you get into that sort of older teenage years, I think all books can be enjoyed by everyone, but once you get into those teenage years, you get the teenage angst and you get the emotion and the topics like, sex and, it's sort of more those teenage things come into the story where, so I didn't want them to have that in my story because of the target audience, but so it's still more wholesome, but it's still got, those middle graders still want danger and they still want risk taking and they still want outwitting because, you're all, writing a book, you're also in competition with like computer games and TV and all that sort of stuff. So you've got to
Yep.
keep it a bit edgy and a bit happening. So yeah, so it was just trying to get that level right to keep it exciting and, a little bit on the edge of your seat, but not going into that next level of teenage angst. Yeah. So I think that was just trying and getting it in the mind of a, say a 12-year-old is what you have to do, but being conscious of not taking it to that next level.
No, you've done it really well. I feel like middle grade is such a It's to me, I've written children's fiction for many years, and I was very unsure about middle grade. I always felt like I was writing for that group because the ideas were kind of younger, but my writing was always older, and I just always found it difficult to place that kind of writing. So, yeah, no,
Yeah.
you've done it really well, and your writing style as well is very tight, and it's great. Good
Oh,
language for that age group as well.
oh, thank you. Yeah, so, I think that there are some universal things at that age group, like creeping out at night and outwitting people and a little bit of deception. And so they're sort of things that they love to, and outwitting people in authority. And I also sort of had it in a setting that was, like around a school. So I thought that we can all, everyone can relate to that, the
Yeah.
school and teachers and that. Yeah.
It's almost at that age group, I guess, is it starting to push the boundaries a little bit and not unsafely, but like you said, with teenage pushing the boundaries, it's more adult content that they're doing that sort of thing for.
So, yeah, it's just finding that step beforehand, before those
Yeah.
teenage I call it the teenage angst.
Yeah. Well, it is. Yeah. Every time we say angst, I instantly I just think attitude of the teenage.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Constantly.
exactly.
Do you read a lot of middle grade fiction at all, or any mystery books? Do you like any? Do you like the adult mysteries as well, or
Yeah, I
mystery
my
genre?
my yeah, that's my genre I usually go to is, mystery, thrillers, crime, adult
Yeah.
crime fiction. I also like watching it on TV, so I do like that. And, looking at the bookshelves of middle grade in a bookstore, there are the set ones that are around, but there seems to be not a lot. So that's why, well, I was always going to write mystery because that's what I like. But I thought, oh, that's a good place to slot it in. And also the Australian. That's,
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I know. Well, yes, Australian Outback Noir is a unique genre and it blends gritty, suspense-filled narratives with the distinct atmosphere of the Australian Outback. So I guess what draws you to this setting, but as you said, it's quite important that it's Australia. We're living in Australia. How does it sort of shape the tones and themes of the story as well?
well, I thought that, the Australian bush, has always had this sort of sense of its foreboding, alluring, right back to Picnic at Hanging Rock, the story, the bush. So I really wanted to sort of bring the bush into it, which surrounds the town. I also wanted to make it just Australian with, it's got the climate. So it's, opens with bushfire, it's got thunderstorms, so it's got the heat, then it's got the bats and the snakes and the flies and all that. So it's sort of creating the atmosphere of Australia. Yeah, so I wanted to be sort of a vivid setting that also had a sense of, a little bit of danger. Like, do we venture out into the bush? Do we venture? Yeah, and then I brought in sort of references to, the bush rangers and gold rush and, Indigenous people, just so, mentioning them in the story. So to make it really feel Australian. Yeah, so just those sort of things. Yeah, so yeah, I wanted to just, I guess I chose it. Well, I wanted to write about Australia, but I also thought it was great because of that sense of mystery and foreboding and alluring.
It's definitely got that reputation, hasn't it? The bush, it
Yeah,
feels like a
a little bit of
mystical
danger.
element. Yeah. Well, I think children growing up here as well, they're aware of the dangers that are sort of hidden there, not just the flora and fauna, but it is a vastness. Yeah.
Yes.
Gotta be very.
The gum trees and the bush, and it sort of goes forever and it surrounds the town. And yeah, so I just wanted to make that sense, I guess, a sense of danger.
Yeah, I've read Picnic at Hanging Rock as well, and I loved it. I think they left it unsolved, didn't they?
I think they said that at some stage there was some sort of resolution, but yeah, I don't
Mm.
know. But yeah, I just read it a long time ago, but I just remember that sense of the bush. And then when they made the movie, they had the shots of the bush, and I was imagining that in my story
Yeah.
when I
Oh,
was writing it.
that's amazing. Is there any particular bush near you, like where you live, that
Um,
drew on inspiration?
yeah, up on the northern beaches, there's all the national park. Yeah, and that's like lots of bush up there. Yeah, so that's the bush that I see.
Yeah, fantastic. And how long was the process in writing it? How long did the work take? And was
Oh,
it
it took a while because being my first novel that I wrote, I did some courses along the way because I wanted to really learn the craft of writing. So, it wasn't like I just sat down and went, oh, okay, like I'm just going to write. So I had to sort of go back, and so I did some courses in just online courses, but in the process of writing the story. And then, of course, life got in the way and there was other things. So yeah, it took a couple of years of me to actually really get it how I wanted it. But I
Fantastic.
also sort of used it as a bit of a pastime that I'd escape into this world. So I sort of enjoyed going into my world of Mira Booker and Minty and Billy. So it was like a nice pastime to be doing when I sit down
Yeah,
at my computer. So maybe I
fantastic.
dragged it out a bit more.
No, that's great. I love that. I absolutely love it. And you hear that other writer saying this time with you in your novel, you're not going to get that back before you let other people in and out into the world. So that's great. Was it difficult? Did you find it difficult to get into the minds of younger things?
No, not really. I actually found it quite easy to get into the minds of, must say something about me. I can go into the mind of a 12-year-old. I just felt like it was really like escapism into their world. I just felt like I could go into their shoes. So I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, can you relate to that time in your life? You know, when I first started writing and I went to YA immediately because for me, my teen years were quite turbulent and I find catharsis in kind of writing about it. And so, yeah, I wonder if people kind of tend to resonate to where a specific time in their life was good or
Yeah.
bad.
I was quite adventurous as a young person. I always used to imagine that there were mysteries around my neighborhood and there was the haunted houses and there was always a mystery. I was always imagining that in my neighborhood and I can still in my head picture the haunted houses that I thought were around. And I can remember with my friends, I'd want to sneak in and have a look. Maybe not all young children are like that, but I always had an imagination that thought something was going on in particular places.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And have you, I mean, obviously, this is your debut one. You're enjoying the process. You've written it now. Have you thoughts for the next one? Is there another one in the series or anything?
Well, I've left, when you get to the end of the book, you can see that I've left it open a bit that something could be occurring. So, yeah, it's funny because I kind of miss my characters and I miss the world. So I'm sort of thinking I'd like to go back in and do another one in the same world, maybe have some different messages come out that the story then has a couple of other messages rather than the same messages. So with their newfound growth, the characters could now get into another mystery in the town.
Oh, amazing. That's great. And how have you found the publishing adventure for you? Have you enjoyed it or?
Well, it's been an eye opener. It's been a learning curve. Yeah, it's just been a learning curve, definitely. It's definitely at the end of it, you do come out with a whole lot of knowledge. So second time round, you'd have a lot more things on board that you would know about.
Yeah, no,
It's been the journey.
well, being a hybrid author podcast, the podcast is here to help authors on their adventure. Do you have any advice you want to share, you know, in terms of helping aspiring children's authors or just anybody who wants to write or write in the mystery genre?
Yeah, so I think writing in the mystery genre, I guess the important thing is your setting. You know, if you want to write something, you've got to have a setting that's really easy to imagine and it has a little bit of sense of a setting that's suitable to a mystery. I think that's picking something and then having something happen at the beginning of the story. And then you've got your clues, planting some clues along the way, having some high stakes, having a reason why your protagonist has to get through the clues and just having some deception, some red herrings, deception, tricks that happen along the way, characters that your reader can relate to and become invested in, and just a really good resolution at the end that is satisfying to the reader. I guess they're the things that I tried to put into my book.
Do you think for this age group as well, it's important to wrap up the mystery rather than like picnic at Hanging Rock, leave it open ended?
Oh, yeah, I think
Thing,
so. You
yeah.
said, yeah, I think they need a resolution and a sense of satisfaction at the
Yeah.
end, definitely. And just making the characters, the reader, be really getting invested in them and connecting with them and wanting things to work out for them.
Almost wanting to become a sleuth themselves through the book and figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's right. That's right. You know, wanting to sort of jump into the story and be part of it as well. That's what I want the readers to feel.
Oh, fantastic. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time and expertise, Rosie. Can you tell our listeners, you know, where can they discover the new book and everything you do on and offline?
Okay, so the book's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. It's advertised on Goodreads, and I've also Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram at I'm Rosie Reads. Yeah, so that's it. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. That was fantastic.
Oh, thank you for having me. And yeah, I really hope that your two daughters really get all those things out of the book that I wanted my target audience to get. So
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they will. Like, as I said, we're still part reading it. She's 11 at the end of the year. She's the one that's been wanting mysteries for that age. So
Oh, okay.
when your book
Good.
came out, I was like, oh, let's read this.
Okay, great. I really hope they enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.